All right, guys. So I had a problem with my stairwell. You can see right here, it's cracking, right? That's a bit of a problem. So I get a lot of wood from work because we're a metal fab shop. And a lot of times there'll be a bunch of wood left over and whatnot, and we use it for various things. But there's this massive wood bin, and basically the idea is that anything that's in this overflowing wood bin is up for grabs, and a lot of times it's 2x4s. I can't say enough good things about a Craig tool because it allows you to put in joints like this very easily to connect them. So the idea is with this ladder well is that down here I'm going to put the litter boxes. As you can tell, the cats like to make a mess. So it's something to consider for you guys that have a lot of cats. I mean, we now have 3. But anyway, the idea is that this is all going to be framed in with ply. Also, a lot of it I got from work. And then this is going to be a door, and then I'll be able to put the litter boxes in here, and then the cats won't be able to kick around the litter, and the smell will be contained because this is going to have a big door that kind of fits this shape. And then what I'd like to do ideally is then run a ventilation, because up inside here, that is a cavity that goes up to the attic. So if I can somehow get ducting with a 4-inch pusher fan like I have right here, then I'll be able to use perhaps the electric I put down here for a light socket, just something to, not a light socket, but a night light to illuminate it. Then the smell from the cats, which is inevitable, is going to go up into the attic and out. So then on top of that, I made some additional storage space up here. All my various paracords and whatnot. I do a lot of paracording. I mean, it's excellent. A lot of my, I don't have any examples down here per se, but the Turk's Head Wrap and the Paracordist on YouTube has excellent tutorials on learning how to do the Turk's Head Wrap. I've accumulated a lot of paracord and whatnot, need a place to do it, and among some other things, some crafty type things. All this is going to get paneled off. And then I have a bunch of plywood. The plywood is going to be paneling off this entire basement. The pallets. So a bunch of pallet wood. I have to process all the pallets and whatnot to get all the individual pieces. There are a bunch of different thicknesses and everything, and that's trending on YouTube big time. But let me take you upstairs real quick, and I'll show you what's going on with my attic door, because that actually involves some metal fabrication. Set it up with a zoomy camera going all over the place. Okay, so in my previous videos, I pointed out that the compressed cardboard, whatever it was, very cheap wood, was the panel to what was the attic door. And that's the fixture that holds this entire thing in place. And here at this hinge point, it started to basically bend and warp, and it eventually broke, which would have sent me on a joyride. So anyway, I have a bunch of diamond plate aluminum. And the exciting thing about this diamond plate aluminum is that I was able to do these TIG welds, you see here. And now you see the bow in the aluminum. Now I pointed out on the podcast that aluminum, all types of metals, everything you weld is going to distort. This is called weld distortion. Even though these are just tiny little tacks in this flat plate, you see how much it's distorting? I'm going to have to actually clamp this down to this platform to get it flat enough to be able to drill the holes and whatnot accurately, to make it to where this diamond plate panel is now going to be the cover plate and mounting platform for this attic door access that's going to be put up there. because it was built cheap. And then how many people, because they don't have this welding knowledge, would be relegated to going to Lowe's and buying the same exact thing, built the same exact way and prone to the same exact failures. Yes, it takes time to re-engineer these things and whatnot, but inevitably in this reality, it's what we have to do. So knowing how to weld aluminum, and as you can see, this is very thin aluminum, but I need to keep this light because I need these, I don't know what these would be called, but basically these shocks, actually, I think that these are the only things that actually draw this up. And if these don't have the strength to draw this up because this is too heavy, then I'm going to have to engineer it even more. So I don't want to do that. I'm keeping it light, but it's really strong. Again, I mean, just tacking it. Little tacks, little welds. Because you don't want it to be welded too much because it's going to distort even more. It's really unnecessary. This is going to be substantially stronger than what was there before. If you're in the market for a TIG welder, it's important to note that you need a TIG welder that runs on AC if you want to be able to weld aluminum. And if you're going to buy a TIG welder, then you're going to want one that has AC as an option. Definitely something to consider. If you bought a TIG welder and it doesn't have AC current, I mean, you really kind of shorted yourself. So you definitely want to invest the money. I want to point out, and I've definitely posted this before, that this little machine is primarily what I use. Right now, I'm up here in the garage because my shop needs a bit of work. I can kind of show you guys that real quick. It's just down the other side of this little 1.5 acres. That's a garden shed I'm building with a new roof and everything. It was over there and it was tilted over and decaying. And so we drug it out and everything, made it taller, put a nice roof on it. It has 4 sides, windows in it, and with a concrete slab, it's been put up, and there's like tar paper, like some thick tar paper in between that and the concrete, and then it's going to get covered with stone sheets, shingles. But down there in the shop, this whole thing, I want to go ahead and make that a parking lot. You can see that there's an elevation dip, and what was happening is the land was coming right up against the shop, and if I was to put down gravel, the gravel would be higher than the door. So I actually had to excavate all of that, and then I'm filling it in with rubble. So I'm doing a lot of side work and everything to get the money to do that. And some of my side hustles have involved doing things like this go-kart. So as you can see, these welds I did last night, the aluminum was dirty. That's another important aspect about welding aluminum is that it has to be very clean. And as you can see, I didn't do a good enough job of cleaning it. And you can see all metals, stainless, aluminum, or whatever, will form an oxide layer. And it's basically interacting with our atmosphere, and it's like an aspect of the corrosion. But the oxide layer, the aluminum, stainless, any type of real alloy or anything like that, carbon steel interacts with the environment, and that it actually just starts to rust. So anyways, the aluminum will form an oxide layer, and you can see I just hit this with a brush a little bit ago, last night actually, and you can see where there's still that layer of oxide. You need to have that gone if you're going to weld it. This thing, this racing seat was covered in all types of holes drilled in it throughout the years and whatnot, and I plug welded a lot of them using this copper, this big chunk of copper as like a backing plate, because it won't adhere to the copper. I can put that behind it and I can just fill it up with weld and sand it down. Don't make fun of me for this, because that wasn't my weld, that was from the factory. And this is a suck up. A suck up occurs when you let off the pedal too fast and the metal constricts in and it creates a pinhole. That wasn't me. That wasn't me. These aren't necessarily pretty, but as you can see, the distortion and the weld actually drew that in and whatnot. Now I could fill it up a little bit more and everything, but at the end of the day, it's a go-kart. And I'm, you know, doing a lot of modification for this guy for not much. So anyway, let me take this seat out without banging around too much. And so before, this guy had bolts coming through and they were jabbing him in the ass, and he had to put padding down in order to sit in it and be comfortable. Now I put in a cross member and whatnot. As you can see, it's strong, and then I went ahead and threaded and tapped these. That way he can just go ahead and bolt these stainless bolts in. I put in this nice cross member, and then towards the front, although it's going to be somewhat difficult to see, that's a stainless little bracket to hold this frame in place with a nice nut at the end. So I'm doing a little bit of go-kart modification, and back to my original point is that I have a $7,000 TIG machine down at the shop that I showed you just a little bit ago. That machine hasn't been used in years because I got this machine. This machine will run you from $1,500 to $1,700. I know it's a little bit of change, but the amount of things you can do, it'll totally pay for itself. But I mean, I suggest that you go ahead and buy the bottles, don't rent them. It runs on argon gas. And also, if you have a few welding supply places in your area, it would behoove you to treat it almost like you were buying a new car. I saved $50 off of buying that machine because I went ahead and made the companies compete against each other. We have in our area Airgas and Albright's Welding. So first I went to Airgas, asked them what they could offer me in terms of the exact machine that I want. They gave me a price. Then I went to Albright's. Albright's wanted to beat that price, and so I saved $50. It's worth it. That's $50. If you already have your neck in the game and you're going to buy a machine, it'd behoove you to make them compete because they definitely sell them at more than, you know, that's what retail is. So you make them compete. Save yourself a little bit of money. But that machine has been incredibly valuable. You just seen how thin this aluminum is, and I was able to weld that. And the practicality of it is that you're no longer subject to the design that a lot of these big companies that make products, you know, I mean, they're not made efficiently anymore. And it's up to you to engineer things better. That way you don't have to go out in town and buy the same thing and knowing it's going to fail. So, all right, well, thank you.